I've checked out a couple that have claimed to be decentralized, and then the more you dig into them, they're not. So,
Yeah,
I initially was talking with Bill over at Minds, and I just think he's like a great stand-up
mm,
guy. Like, I love what he's doing, and
he's
he was
brilliant.
one of the people that was like, if it's not open source, then like that's your first red flag because I know when
100%.
like Getter launched, everyone was like, "This is truly decentralized freedom of speech, rah rah rah," and then everyone's like, "Wait a second," and they started doing their homework, and they're like, "It's not." So right now, I feel like there's a lot of apps that are popping up that are trying to like pretend to be this one thing, and like you said in your book, there's a difference between saying we won't censor and we can't censor.
Sure. Yeah, I think my general thesis on the future of social and communication has to fall under six rules. Like there's six rules to me that you must follow. Number one, it has to be built on a decentralized monetary network. Number two, it has to be focused on permissionless innovation, which means it's open source. It has to have censorship resistant. The creators should own everything. There should be digital property rights through encryption. And there's one more thing I have to like look in my book. I forgot. I always forget the sixth thing, but there's a sixth test that must be passed. And if you pass those six tests, then I think that's what's going to lead to the future of social. And open source is definitely one of them. I'm like scrolling through my book because I have it's the end of the introduction that I put peer governance versus platform governance. So the idea is that the the platform, quote unquote, doesn't control what's said, the people inside the community itself control what's said.
Mhm. So how is that applied? Because what I was told is when it comes to like these DAOs and these dApps, and if you're having everything be regulated via the community, is essentially if you were to take a boardroom and then just have that boardroom scale out to the internet. So I guess do you see any like hurdles there when there's so many people?
Yeah, I mean, because we let the admins of the communities themselves, like we're not an open town square. We're not like Twitter. So when you join Zion, you're joining a specific community inside of Zion, and that community has an admin or multiple admins, and they will regulate their community as they wish. So
Okay.
that's the way that we think of it.
Oh, that makes a lot more sense because at scale, I'm like, then who's voting? Because it could kind of be like on other platforms, you could send in swarms of people and then
Of
they could
course.
complicate it. So it's like one of those things where it's, in theory, beautiful because you don't want this top down method. But then how do you do this bottom up one without it getting like turning into a clusterfuck, essentially?
And the focus is all around communities. That's the focus.
Hmm. Um, so one thing I would say, like during this series that I've been recording, and a lot of people have been criticizing I guess specifically when it comes to Bitcoin is you hear two things. You hear that it's like the most secure network and that it's encrypted end to end. But then I've also had a conversation with the late John McAfee, and he was like, Bitcoin is the worst privacy coin. It's essentially someone forever seeing into your bank account. Like once you make a single transaction, like they can forever do that. So how can, I guess, can two things be true at once, or can you explain, I guess, like that specific critique to people that are really new to the space?
I think at the base layer, it's a public ledger and it's an open ledger. And if you're tying your name to a specific wallet, then that's what it is. But Lightning is a very privacy focused network. So the Lightning transactions are private if it's between two separate nodes. Wallets are private in that world. So I think it's just a different approach.
Okay, so I guess when it comes to like the everyday person, again, it kind of sounds frivolous when you have like creators complaining about losing platforms, which I do really appreciate as a creator because I'm actually currently shadow banned on almost every platform. So it's like 1% of my followers actually get to see the content that I'm pushing out. And it's
We
a
want to help you with
decade.
that. We want to
I
change
would
that.
love that. That would be amazing. And now it's like if I
We would love to get your community on Zion.
would love to push it. But I would say for the everyday person that to point out, like, I guess the seriousness of this, I have people, which I'm not going to obviously say their names, but like they're not allowed to bank anymore because of
Yeah.
like their profession. So if you have, Bank of America and they find out that you're in some industry that they don't approve of, or
Yeah.
MasterCard doesn't want you, let's say, buying marijuana, even though it's legal, like people are already censoring actual, like everyday Joes.
Yeah, there's financial censorship. Isn't just I think that's what I outlined in the book. It's not just freedom of speech, but it's freedom of